Hey there, man. And today I'm starting a brand new series. I'm calling it Men of God. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at four different men of God in the New Testament: Jesus, Peter, Thomas, and Paul. And we're going to extract from these four guys lessons that we can all apply to our lives today. So I encourage you to get with a small group, a men's group maybe, or a mentor and talk through each one of these. In fact, I encourage you to sort of read along with us as we sort of dig into the scripture and do these little character studies. And the first study that we're going to start with is Jesus. Now, it might sound a little bit weird to think of Jesus as a man of God, because Jesus was certainly more than a man of God. Jesus is God himself. But there's a story in John chapter 13 that shows us how to be servants like Jesus. You know, some of you guys are leaders. And as a leader, I think sometimes you get the wrong idea that your place of leadership means other people serve you. But in Jesus's world, in Jesus's mind, it's sort of an upside down principle. He was God himself, and yet he was serving his disciples. That's what we see in John chapter 13 at the Last Supper. It says in verse 3, Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and would return to God. And so he got up from the table, he took off his robe, and he wrapped a towel around his waist. Now I want you to look at that word authority, because that's the first concept we're going to wrestle with here. And here's the key point. A servant's heart flows from a position of authority, right? Jesus had all the authority in the world, right? He is God. He was God. The disciples just saw him performing all these miracles, raising dead people, right? And yet Jesus, one of the last things he does, one of the last lessons he teaches his disciples is, hey guys, listen, I have all this authority. I have more authority than you will ever have in your life. And Jesus used his position of authority to humble himself, to debase himself, and to do something that only the lowliest servant would do 2,000 years ago. He washed his disciples' feet. Think about it. Even Judas's feet, Jesus washed Judas's feet. So I want you to think, man, for yourself, your position of authority, right, wherever it is, at home, at work, at school, whatever, your position of authority, do you view that as a stepping stone to sort of step on people who are beneath you? Or do you, like Jesus, view it as, I should be serving from my authority. I should be a servant. That's what Jesus would want us to do. Now back to the text. It says in verse 12 that after Jesus washed their feet, he put his robe on again, and he sat down and he asked them a question. Do you guys understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's what I am. And he said this, and since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. Here's a leadership lesson from this passage. Servant leaders expect their followers to be servants too. You know, Jesus wasn't going to serve his disciples and make them think that it was all about them, so that he was a servant leader, but then as soon as he was gone, they went on to be, you know, a different kind of a leader, you know, the typical leader that is just stepping on people. In your life, man, I want you to really ask yourself this question. Number one, am I a servant leader? But number two, am I looking to empower the people around me, underneath me, to be servant leaders also? I want to pass on this heart of Jesus to the people underneath me. So in my own life, my son AJ, he's 16 years old, and one of my greatest goals for him is that he becomes a servant leader, not just a leader, but a servant leader. So I try to model that for him, but then I try to pass that along so that he doesn't think the world revolves around him, right? Because this is something that can happen is if you're a servant leader and you serve people underneath you, if you're not intentional about passing that leadership value onto them, then they're going to get the wrong idea and they're not going to be servant leaders. Jesus didn't want that to happen to his disciples. So he made sure that he looked them in the eye and he said, guys, I want you to do the same thing. You're not above me. And if I served, I want you to serve too. And so after Jesus left, he left that indelible mark on his disciples. One more thing, and it comes from verse 15. Jesus again speaking, he said, I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. I tell you the truth, slaves are not greater than their master, nor is the messenger more important than the one who sends the message. And then he says this, now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them. Here's the leadership lesson. The blessing of God is promised to men who will serve like Jesus. Maybe for you're looking at this passage with your group or with your mentor, and you're really wrestling with this idea. Listen, if I become a servant leader, then all of the other people who put themselves first at work, at wherever, right? These people are going to have the leg up on me because they're going to, they're going to lead from a different place. They're going to lead from a different principle. And so you might mistakenly think that they're going to be more blessed for being a selfish leader and that you're going to get the shaft for being a servant leader. But look again at what Jesus said there. Jesus said, you will be blessed if you do this. You're going to be blessed. He was telling his disciples, you're going to receive this blessing from God if you become a leader like me, Jesus is saying. If you become a servant leader, don't fall for the temptation to be a leader that makes it all about yourself. Don't look around you and in the workplace or wherever it is that you're leading. Don't look around you and fall for the lie that really a different kind of leader is the one that gets ahead in life. Jesus said this 2,000 years ago, and I believe that this is true. You will be blessed. It might take a while. You might not see it for 5 years or for 10 years, but you will be blessed, men. And the people around you, your kids, your co-workers or the people who work for you, the people around you will be impacted if you learn to serve like Jesus.